Hey guys, Nerdspire here. Welcome to my video where we are going to be talking today about the Rings of Power again. This time with a bit more looking on both sides of the argument and talking about flaws and highlights in the story. Before we begin, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe if you enjoy. The Rings of Power is extremely controversial, and there are definitely some understandable moments where everyone should get why fans are upset. There was a lot of criticism in my comments on the last video, and I want you to know, for those who were respectful, I really appreciate the feedback, and I am doing more research as we speak to make sure I make the best content for you guys. I think where I want to start this video is the same place both The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit started. I also want to note, I know this isn't the last we will see of the show, but it is the last we will see for a while. The Rings of Power did not utilize the Harfoots to near the right amount or in the right way, with a pretty average to boring writing when it comes to them, but the whole point of having them as characters was to show Gandalf and exhibit the relationship with the hobbits. So did it do that properly? No, not really at all. Gandalf went from a guy who couldn't really remember himself whatsoever, stumbling over words, blatantly dangerous, to someone who spoke poetically and with wisdom. Which, if you're not looking at the lore of the story, makes sense. If he didn't have an understanding of his surroundings, it would make sense for him to be volatile. But even for a fan who is trying to give the show a good shot, it was shocking to see Gandalf behave so completely different at the beginning of the show. I remember turning to my friends and being like, when did the stranger become wise? I'm not going to get into the discrepancies too much with the story that the Rings of Power should have told, more so focusing on what the show did as a whole, and even then it's still under-delivered. I will say I didn't hate it. I'm sure most people did, but this season felt quite weak, especially considering the setup. At the end of season 1, Sauron is revealed, and the 3 Elvish rings were crafted. We were left wondering what would happen in the next season, and then we saw the trailers come out, where we are led to believe Khazad-dûm is falling and Eregion is being attacked, which roughly follows the original story but missing a lot of details. Celebrimbor, a huge character known for being the best elven smith, the last in the line of Feanor, a huge and very important character in the story, is kind of made a joke in the series, but there is somewhat good reason. Anatar, or Sauron, deceives Celebrimbor to forge the rings, and makes him believe that indeed Anatar is his friend, pretty close to the story. However, the forging of the show is massively rushed in comparison to the books. From what I have seen, it took nearly 400 years to forge the rings, and it would have been so cool to see the passage of time in an artistic way, showing that elves barely feel the difference with the world around them unraveling. Mordor growing in strength, and Gondor being established, and even possibly we could have seen the fall of Numenor. That's another thing. The Numenor arc of the story. I, as a fan, understand the importance of Numenor. From a writing perspective, fleshing out characters is very important, but Season 2 is way too much. We see the progression of characters we care little about. There is no tension when there are near-death scenes of Isildur or Elendil, because we know they survive until the War of the Last Alliance. It's the same when we see the battle between Anatar and Galadriel. There really isn't much tension in the battle when we see Galadriel fall. I'm not sure anyone was on the edge of their seat, since we see her in both The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. The Numenor focus felt so stretched out, with strange, very made-up sounding rules from the Valar, to inconsistent characters, and to be honest, I can't remember most of the names in the Numenor part because they're written so forgettably. A huge focus in the show for some reason is their weird oversaturation of shipping characters. It seems the writers watch Twilight or Grey's Anatomy because they care way too much about romantic plot rather than the actual important story being told. They mention time and time again that Sauron is in Galadriel's head and that she let him in, leading to the idea that it was infatuation with him that led to Sauron being revealed and possibly gaining back power. And multiple times also wrote in Sauron saying, if I may say this, weird shit. Like when he tells the she-elf at the forge that she resembles Galadriel, it was just so uncomfortable watching. Of course, that was probably put there intentionally, but it was done in such an odd and out-of-character way that it made the scene feel off. I do like the actors, and I think most of the actors were chosen for the right reasons in this show. People have talked a lot about casting, so I won't get into that. Certain characters feel often out of place in the show, or don't really resemble their book counterparts. A great example is Tom Bombadil, someone we have never seen in any Tolkien live-action adaptation, who was really taken and stretched to fit the role he plays in the show rather than really feeling like Tom. I didn't know much about him before doing some research, and he's an amazing character, so if y'all would like to see a video on him, let me know. But let me tell you, after reading about him, other than the occasional mention of his wife Goldberry, the river spirit, and sometimes humming his well-known poem, he really felt like a shell of a character meant to fill the spot to help Gandalf on his path, similar to how most of the hobbits felt, rather than him being Tom Bombadil, the cheery and happy guy. If you disagree with me in the comments, let me know why, and give me your thoughts about the show in general. I hope everybody has a blessed day, and bye-bye.